Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Cup, Editorials, brought to you by Cup of Hemlock Theatre. Yeah, we haven't done one of these in a while. I will be your host for this episode, Ryan Borochovitz, co-artistic producer here at Cup of Hemlock Theatre. And this is, our first episode of 2025. Woohoo, new year. Happy New Year to you all. It is the beginning of a new interval in our theater world. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. This is sort of just a kind of light, kind of breezy check-in episode where we have assembled the Golden Trio who does Cup of Hemlock Theatre. That's us, and I'll introduce the other two in just a moment. Not that they need any introductions. And we're basically using this as an editorial space to have a bit of a casual, interesting discussion about the past year of Cup of Hemlock Theatre, the episodes we put out. We've done some number crunching about some of the interesting revelations about our output from that year. And we'll also just talk about the theater season that we just had in 2024 and some of the things we're looking forward to in theater in Toronto and beyond in 2025. So that's what this episode is. If that sounds enjoyable, keep watching or listening. And I am joined today by two of my favorite people who I love talking about theater with. It is, like I said, the Golden Trio here at Cup of Hemlock. First up, we have my co-artistic producer, Mackenzie Horner. Hello, Mac. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Ryan. Happy New Year. Long time no see. The Elf on the Shelf is officially put away. So, it's not spying on us anymore. I'm excited to see what's going to happen in 2025 and kind of do our knockoff Spotify wrap up. Yeah, all that fun stuff. And in my cup today, I am repping the Cup Cup. I know.
Cheers.
Cheers.
This is a pretty appropriate episode for all three of us to have our cups. But what's in yours, Mac?
Well, I'm doing some Earl Grey tea with a bit of honey because we are recording this later at night and Mac needs a bit of a cup of tea.
Nice. Lovely. I will just say I also have a cup of tea in the cup orange pico for me.
Jill, tell me you got tea too.
No, I don't, guys.
Damn it, Jill.
You ruined our tea trifecta. How dare you?
Oh no, the triangle is broken.
Also, I should introduce you before you talk about the contents of your cup. The third, one might say most important prong of our Golden Trio is, of course, our associate artistic producer, Jillian Robinson. Hello, Jill. Welcome.
Hello.
What is in your cup?
Most important prong. I don't think I've
know.
ever been given that.
It's an equilateral triangle. We're all kind of equally important, but I
I'll
felt
take
bad
the top
about
courtesy. This sounds great.
Sure.
No. Hi, hello. Yes, Happy New Year, everyone. 2025 is here. It is crispy cold when we are filming this episode. So I'm wearing a nice little cozy pink sweater. I've got ice cream earrings on.
That's why it's so cold.
But I just thought I'll just, as Max says, what's your ensemble? I'll just pepper that in.
Right.
Yes.
I'm doing bad hosting duties. I forgot to ask you about your ensemble.
It's all right. It's a soft pink ensemble. Yes, I have the cup. I am just drinking water. I have joined SpinCo. I'm doing some spin classes, and also my day job is serving at a brunch restaurant. So I get very dehydrated, very easy. So I have water in here and then hydration station, obviously, too. So
too much water.
H2O is the way to go.
Nice. Yes, yeah. I also have, in addition to my tea and my cup, I have a bottle of water at my feet in case I need to hydrate as well. Okay. Yeah. So you're probably wondering why I called this meeting, you two. So I've already given you both the preamble of this, but for our lovely audience watching and or listening at home, I was a bit of a busy little beaver over the holidays. And after we wrapped our 2024 output here on the Cup, I wanted to crunch some of the numbers and see what did we accomplish this year? What kind of episodes do we put out? What did we do? And I have tabulated all of that into what I think are some pretty interesting findings that I would like to share with both of you and with the audience, because maybe they care. So I'm going to go through a few different categories of data that I have accumulated here. And if anything sort of strikes you as interesting, feel free to interrupt me at any point and we can talk about that little nugget of information. Does that sound like a good place to start before we get into some faves?
Sounds looking superb. Forward to? Let's do it.
Okay, so in the calendar year 2024, we at Cup of Hemlock Theatre released, drumroll please, 52 individual episodes.
That's how many weeks are in a year.
That is, and how many cards are in a standard deck. Not counting jokers. But yes, considering that this is a weekly show, give or take TBD, these are unprecedented times, as we say in the description of every episode since the very beginning. Even though the times have become less unprecedented, I was about
to say,
I have stuck with that. Did you want me to update it?
No. They are still unprecedented, just for different reasons.
For different reasons.
That is true.
Yeah.
We are
still in unprecedented times. If anyone has listened to the news today, there is very much unprecedented time. Anyways, let's keep politics to the side.
Okay. So, with that interlude aside, yes, we released 52 individual episodes in the year 2024. Now, that's interesting, I think, for a few reasons. Well, one big reason is that we are a weekly show. Yes. But we do occasionally have a dark week when we either don't have an episode to release or we want to give ourselves a break, which is very common, especially after massive undertakings like the Fringe Roundups. We could use a break. So the fact that we still released 52 episodes means that for all of the weeks where we did 2 episodes, not just one, completely counterbalanced the weeks that we took off in this dark variety. And that was entirely unintentional.
Oh.
So go team. For context, we do those doubled up weeks when we get invited to multiple shows or have another time sensitive reason why 2 episodes need to come out within the same week. We don't try to do that because it's better for all of our brains if we don't overburden ourselves that way. But I guess it means we're getting in demand a little bit, that we are getting invited to a lot of different shows that need to come out in short succession. So I thought that stat was quite exciting. But what were these 52 episodes? Yes. Well, most of them were reviews, you will find out. And the next statistic that I want to give you here, I think, is a lot more exciting because even though we only did 52 episodes, a meager 52.
Oh, only 52.
You might be surprised to hear that the total amount of individual theater shows that we reviewed in 2024 was 94. We reviewed 94 theater shows in the year 2024. That's almost 100.
Wow.
And you, dear listener, who's not that familiar with our work, might be wondering, how do you review that many if you've only done 52 episodes? And that's because while most of our individual episodes are focusing on just the one show that we are seeing that week, we also have various roundup episodes, and those cover a lot more than just one individual. So breaking down that 94 a little more granularly, we have in 2024 30 episodes that were all single show duet reviews, 8 plays covered in our Stratford review from the previous Stratford season, 6 from the Women at Plays Festival, 30 from the Toronto Fringe Festival across 3 separate episodes, 6 from the Next Stage Festival across 2 separate episodes, and 4 episodes in 2024 that are covering some kind of pre-recorded content, most of which came from the National Theatre at-home streaming service, but then you also have things like our Hamilton 200th episode. So yeah, 94 individual shows.
That's amazing.
That is a lot.
I was very surprised when I crunched these numbers and came to that. I'm like, that is, wow, we have been
like busy. Go team. Can I just say something here too? I think we might have already peppered this into other episodes, but I think it's pretty obvious. But just for everyone who's listening or watching, Mac, Ryan, and I do this alongside the other streams of the industry that we're in. Like, I am a performer and singer, and other tendrils of the sort of practical side of it. Ryan is in school getting his PhD in performance theater and drama. Mac's working marketing for medieval time. Like, we have other tendrils of the industry that are
like our main
doing our main job and being compensated for. And this obviously is near and dear to our heart, and it is a baby that the 3 of us have nourished and will continue to do so. But to have those stats being said as something that is tangential to our day-to-day life, we all wear capes, pals. That's great. Look at us.
This is our unpaid side hobby. I won't even call it a side hustle.
But we do reap, there's so many benefits of it. Like, obviously, right? Like, we are being invited to these shows. We are in communication with our beautiful industry. We are networking. We are sitting in community of storytelling throughout
Mhm.
all of these episodes. But I just wanted
Yep.
to just really put it out there that those are some great numbers for something that is in our day to day.
Yeah. And
Yes.
that's almost 100 theater shows that we didn't have to pay to see because we do get invited and comped to these shows.
Yep.
Mhm.
Not that we would have
And we
necessarily.
thank those companies for
Yes,
that
of course.
opportunity.
Yes.
We thank the
yes.
companies, we thank the publicists, the ones who always have our
Yeah.
back. You know who you are
Yeah.
if you're tuning into this. And yeah, and like we maybe wouldn't have seen all those shows, so it's not like that's tangibly money that we would have spent otherwise.
Mhm.
But this has also just been a wonderful opportunity for us to expand what we get to see in a year,
Yeah.
make
Yes.
this
Yeah.
financially feasible to be as theater savvy
Mhm.
consumers and cultural commentators as I
Mhm.
think we are here. So
Yes.
thank you to everyone who has invited us to a
Yes.
show. If you would like
Yeah.
us to review your show in or around Toronto, go to the email address that is in the description of this episode.
Yes, indeed.
Because we'd always love to expand. I don't know how we'll have room to expand, but we're really just scratching the surface of what there is in Toronto and around
Yes.
Toronto
Yeah.
because there's so much theater that we don't even get to cover, even amid
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah.
And what a great theater city Toronto is that we can just scratch the surface with 94 reviews of individual shows. We
That's
live in a
phenomenal.
great city with a lot of great theater that we
That
can
we do.
actually. Yes,
Yep.
so we are in very
Support
good
the
proximity.
arts.
Huzzah.
Huzzah.
Okay, so those were the reviews. But the next big tendril of the cup that we have is our interviews. And in the year
Yes.
2024, we interviewed a total of 11 individual artists.
Woohoo!
I think that's a little less than we've had in previous years, which I didn't
Yeah.
specifically number crunch, but like
But that's fine.
respectable. Yeah.
Yes.
We had a lot of reviews to do, and those do have to take precedence a lot of the times because we do get invited to them and we have to cover most of the individual artist interviews I think we did this season were just ones that we had like a specific passion for. A few
Yes.
of them maybe were promoting someone who has like a show coming up or something, but this might be the year, if I'm not mistaken, where I think the three of us have actually interviewed artists pretty much evenly. That over the course of this year, I think like for a long time at the beginning, I was the one who did most of the interviews. And then for a long
Yes,
time
you did.
after, Jill did most of them. And
Yeah.
Mac, every so often you chime in with one. But I think this
I
year, I think this year we actually came to pretty even parity between us in that
Cool.
regard. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's fun. If
Yes.
you would like to be interviewed on the cup, please
Link
that
below.
same email. Any other thoughts about interviews before we move on through these stats?
I think it's a great temporal that we have. And I mean, like, even though, yes, we did fewer than what we normally did, and Ryan's right, it's because, when we get invited to a show to review, obviously that will take precedence in our release schedule. But that being said, it's still a great option that we have and a great opportunity. So if there are artists who are looking just to get featured a bit, so they can use that in their reels, things like that, I think it's a great kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? We're like animal social symbiotic.
Yeah, symbiotic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Great.
The bird.
It's a great
soft
symbiotic
echo.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a great symbiotic relationship we've developed with this program. And I mean, like, I know all of us have ideas of people we would love to have on. It's just one of those things of, when like availability on both sides of it, and then obviously when somebody has something really important, then obviously we'll feature it. So it's not like we don't want to do more, but we absolutely will be doing more. Hopefully in the new year, because I know all three of us have people that are on our to-do lists of people that we want to feature. So
maybe not a to-do list when we're referring
True.
to people, but I
True.
get what you're saying.
Yes. You should see
Yes.
our spreadsheets. The list of people
have
who
so
are like
many
our
spreadsheets.
wish list of interviews
Mhm.
never stops growing. So
Mhm.
yes.
But might I take this time to say, I
Mhm.
do love, and I don't want us to ever not do this.
Mhm.
I love that the cup just flows freely. I love that we're saying all of our
Mhm.
stats and we are comparing and contrasting maybe to other years. But I think releasing the fact that there's expectations for 2025, because I do think what is magical about what we do here is it is sort of like a first come first serve basis. And like Ryan said, like a lot of that is, if we're invited to a show, or if we have an artist tap us, we do sew them into our schedule accordingly. And I love that. And I think it also, for us too, it keeps things creative and not regimented and not laborious. The cup flows freely of, is there a review this month? Okay, we have maybe a couple weeks where there maybe is some room for an interview or room for an editorial, and we sort of tackle that as we go. Like, again, I feel like I'm behind the curtaining a lot of this episode, but I think this is cool little factoids to share with our audience as well, of how Mac, Ryan, and I, usually it's at the top of the month. We do like an overview of what we have upcoming. Have we been invited to some shows? Are there some weeks where they're dark? What can we do with those weeks? And very rarely do we like think as far ahead as more than 2 months. And we just, as a trio, make it work and make it roll. And I think that's also something to just, as we go forward, these are great stats and like cheers to us. But like, if we do 47 episodes this year instead of 52, that's okay. If we do only 7 artist interviews, that's also okay. It's just how the sort of scheduling cookie crumbles.
I completely agree with that. And that, I think, gets us into these next couple categories of stats very well, because over the past couple years, we've introduced a few newer sub-series that we're kind of still getting our footing about, even though it's been literally multiple years of having them at this point. And that's, I think, very well represented in these next two that I want to talk about here, because in 2024, how did we do on our screenplays, a sub-series? That's the one where, as longtime fans of the show would know, we assemble panels of artists and friends of the Cup, very similar to our old panel reviews before we really focused primarily on the duet reviews of live shows. And we all watch a feature film that is adapted from a stage play and talk about it very much through an adaptation lens of how does this work as an adaptation of the original play. A very interesting marriage of theater and film. And in 2024, we released only one episode of screenplays. That was Fences, based on the August Wilson play starring Denzel Washington and Viola Davis. That, considering this series has been a few years or maybe like a couple years old now, I think that's an interestingly lower number than I was expecting, thinking about how many screenplays.
It felt like we did more screenplays, but I look back and go, it's because we another peek behind the curtain, as Jill would say. Some of these episodes, like the screenplays, like the editorials, like our 4-panel review, some of them get troved for quite a while. So sometimes it feels like we have done more screenplays, but really it's like, oh no, it's just because they've sat in the trove for potentially, several months.
Like I think Fences, we recorded that in like March or April, and then didn't come out until the summer when we finally had a free spot for it.
Fun factoid moment behind the curtain. What is the trove, you might say? Well, Ryan, Mackenzie, and I have created a column on our spreadsheet. Everyone's getting the intel now.
So much spreadsheet drama going on here.
Where it's called the trove. So stuff like screened plays, stuff like if we've reviewed with a 4-person panel, something from a Broadway HD, etc. That sometimes we are very cognizant about not necessarily saying time-specific information in those episodes, so that we purposefully have extra footage 4 weeks down the line. If the 3 of us are busy, or if there is a hole in the schedule, we turn to the trove. So that is that. And now we know.
It's how we give ourselves a little cushion that we're very rarely high and dry without an episode to release. Although we do give ourselves the freedom to go dark if that does happen.
And I will say, as a little stat too, I feel like this year, very rarely did we have like an extensive trove, because I also feel like we had so many live invitations for in-person reviews that we didn't need to have like backup footage, right?
That's to go back to that 94 individual shows that we reviewed, and I included pre-recorded ones in that. Only 4 of them were of the pre-recorded, and each one of those, with the exception of Hamilton, which we knew had to be the 200th episode, was a trove episode, and multiple months elapsed between recording and releasing each one of those, not by design, just by virtue of when we finally had a free space to release each one. The National Theatre Crucible one was kind of funny that it sort of just worked out that we finally had a free space in October. So like, well, this is appropriately Halloween-y, but that was not the intention when we recorded it many months earlier.
Fun.
So that was screenplays for this past year. The other big trove content that I want to draw our attention to is the thing you're watching / listening to right now, Cup Editorials, which is another one of the newer additions to the tendrils of different types of episodes that we release. For those who are less familiar, but becoming very intimately familiar through watching / listening to this episode, the editorial is kind of just the catch-all additional branch of the Cup where we just give ourselves the freedom to talk about whatever theater-related topic is of interest to us and the team. We've tried to release ones that have very specific, often debatable types of juicy topical topics, for lack of a better word, but it really could be anything that we're interested in. And in 2024, you might be surprised to hear that we released 0 Cup editorials. We introduced it, I think, in late 2022 was when the format first entered our different types of panels. And we did a few at the end of 2022, a few more in 2023. And in 2024, we neither recorded nor released a single editorial episode. And that's fine. Like what Jill was saying, that we give ourselves the freedom to put up whatever. If we had like one that we were very excited to talk about, then we would have put that into production so it could be part of the trove. And something else that I've kind of noticed about editorials also is often we do have a very specific, juicy, topical idea in mind. That's something that's been like in the theater news. But if we do an episode on that, there is a limited shelf life for how evergreen that topic is in the theater discourse. I think a good example of that is the very second editorial that we did, which was on the theater etiquette debate, which is still kind of going on. There's still think pieces here and there, but there was a moment when that's all anybody wanted to talk about. And we recorded that episode and sat on it for a little while to the point where we're like, we have to release this at some point soon because this is the thing that everyone's talking about. So editorials are interesting. Some of them are more trovable than others in that regard. One thing that I'll also say about this is I guess I've been a little guilty of holding up editorial production personally on here because for over half a year now, I've had a very specific editorial that I've been working on, toiling away like a little ferret, that is taken me a long time to get done. And it's a very ambitious project. I've hinted about what it is a couple times. I don't know if I necessarily want to get into what it is here. I don't know when it's going to come out. The format of that one is very different from what we usually do. It's not the kind of thing that we can just sit down in a Zoom room, talk about for like an hour or two, and then just get it out of here. So hopefully that'll come out in 2025, but no promises. But there are other editorials that we do have on the docket. One of them I'm recording just next week with another friend of ours who's been on episodes, and hopefully that'll come out soon or not, because that's how the trove works.
But what a great segue to the next point with this friend of the cup you're doing.
This friend of the cup. Yes. So this last little bit of interesting statistics about our output that I want to talk about here is the featured guests that we have had on our reviews outside of the Golden Trio. So for those who are mostly familiar with our duet review format, where it's just two of usually us who go see the show live and then get in the Zoom room and talk about it, that's the duet part. There's two of us, you see. On a long enough time scale, you'll notice that we actually began exclusively doing 4-person panel reviews, usually of the pre-recorded content. And that's why we made the distinction of duet review in the first place, because that was novel that we only had 2 panelists originally. So we usually try to, when we're reviewing a live show, keep it within the Golden Trio, because logistically that's just easiest for 2 of us to go see the show. We don't necessarily have to coordinate with someone else in their schedules. But as we've been doing more and more of these duet reviews, we have become cognizant of the fact that we still want to use this platform we have to feature other guests, welcoming other people from our theater community and our personal networks and just general friends of ours into this beautiful dialogue-based platform that we have cultivated. So when only one of us from this trio is able to see a live show, we are always encouraging each other to invite another friend of ours to review a show with us. Sometimes we have a specific friend in mind who we think would be perfect for a show, so we invite them along. And we have still done the 4-person panels, like the Fences screenplays and a few of the other National Theater and Broadway HD. So In the year 2024, how many non-Golden Trio guests did we feature on the Cup? 7. I don't know what I was doing with my hand there. 7. Yes, we had 7 individual guests. This is not counting the interviews, of which the 11 are each their own individual interview guest. But on episodes that are specifically reviews, we had 7 non-Golden Trio members featured. Something little interesting fact that I will further crunch the numbers on for this is that of those 7, only 1 is somebody who made their first Cup appearance in 2024. And Jill, who was that?
Was dear friend Marie Doucette.
Yes, which episode was she on?
Was on the Frog in Hand episode.
Yes, the Summer Dances Mixed Bill. So that's actually interesting. I think that's, to me, I think a lower number that we've had in previous years where we've only introduced 1 new reviewer. And maybe that's something we will think about, who we can make feel welcome in the next year as we bring more people on. But of the other 6, they're trusted people who we know we always like bringing on. We're always happy to have conversations with. And we know they're reliable and we can always have a good review with them. And we definitely don't want to cordon off this platform to the reliable usual guests, but we might want to be thinking about how we can make this platform feel welcoming to other people who are not in our usual stable of guest reviewers.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts about the guests we've welcomed this past year?
No, I mean, once again, it's all about, as Jill says, it's all about kind of our first come, first serve a la carte system that we have where, our duet reviews took precedent this year because of the amount of invites we had, which meant there was less episodes where we would get guests on to do things with. And usually the ones where we did have things like screenplays or certain editorials, it's because we have built a very strong network around us that we have good, solid people who we've talked about these ideas with off mic. And then I said, hey, when we get to doing something like, The Crucible, we knew we were going to have Sarah back on because she'd already done the film Crucible. We had said, hey, when we get to doing the other one, it's going to be funny to bring you back for another round of The Crucible because that seems just to be a running gag.
Sarah loves The Crucible.
And so do I. And we keep bringing Sarah back so that me and her can do the adaptation we want.
Yes, welcome to the coven.
I'm manifesting it.
I definitely don't think it's a ding on us that there was only 1 new person that was featured in our network, because we are still growing our network, even though it's not visible in our videos. Our network continues to grow strong. It's just one of those things of the a la carte nature of the Cup, where it's kind of where those opportunities are, where we feel we can grow. And I mean, that's something obviously we'll be talking about when we have our own team meetings in the next few weeks, where we'll kind of be looking for other opportunities, because we do want to feature new voices and things like that and grow, because that's something where the Cup started during the pandemic, was allowing artists from across the spectrum a chance to hop on a mic, hop on a video, voice some thoughts and opinions that, when we're all cooped up at home, we want to kind of talk to fellow minds, as it were. That's one of those things where I definitely think there definitely will be more opportunities hopefully coming in the new year as we look at more trovable content and kind of where we can fit some new voices in. So definitely keep an eye out for that. And then also we got some great roster people who I know will be back, like Andrew, like Alicia, like Sarah, who we will continue to bring through, like Max, who will continue to come through the feed as well, because we do like to have our reliable voices who are strong members of our Toronto theater community as well.
And also kind of already talked a bit about this, but just even from like a convenience scheduling sake, right? Sometimes we get these invitations or we block out. It just is easier for all 3 of our schedules to lock 2 of the 3 of us in. That's just, again, being completely honest, this being our side gig to everything else we have going on, it's easier to just keep it within the triangle sometimes. I think that is something neat to maybe expect a little bit of 2025 is to kind of massage out a little bit of how do we get more voices in on these things. Yeah,
for sure.
But also at the end of the day too, we are invited by, like we said, these theater companies, these publicists, not to discount anyone else, but the 3 of us have been tried and true in these types of episodes. And I do think, we owe it to these companies and these publicists to put forth the best content that we can, and not saying anyone outside of the 3 of us can't do that, But I think, again, when it comes to convenience and scheduling and making sure that we are putting out the best sort of tangential advertising for all of these companies and productions, we really do want to ensure that the people on the panel are the best that we can have.
And that's why we keep bringing back the same people, because we vetted them and we know they're good at that. But yes, I agree with you, Jill. The three of us are the known quantities. If you want the Cup to review your show, you know you're going to get at least one of us, maybe two, maybe three, like this time. Very well said, both of you. Thank you. Okay, so this next section of the episode I want to get into is what we might call the best of the year in various permutations. And before we get into some of our personal favorites, I want to briefly highlight, this was part of my number crunching, what was our most viewed videos of the year. Now, I'm not going to say the specific number of views on YouTube. That's publicly accessible knowledge that anybody can see, but I also don't want to date this video too much because these videos still get a lot of views. Additionally,
our Nicholas Nickleby episode is still getting views.
Yeah, the first one is like over 1,000, which is amazing.
People like love that miniseries, Ryan.
I know, it's been weird that people like that. But I like it. Yes, and we enjoyed making it. But yes, so just to kind of look at our year 2024, I don't think it's any surprise that our top three most viewed videos, this is dealing just with the YouTube stats. The podcasts are harder to quantify because it's on sort of different other platforms. But just on YouTube, our top three highest performing videos were the 3 parts of our Fringe Roundup.
Nice.
But not in the order you might think. Part 3 was our most viewed episode of the year, then part 1, and then part 2. Which, well, like that's just a matter of, because we cover obviously different shows within, it's just whichever shows had the most people who want to see it, which artists shared it more widely than others.
They always do.
And it's no surprise that the Fringe is going to be the most popular, because in one of those episodes we covered 9 to 16 shows, as opposed to an individual episode where we spend an hour and a half talking about one show. And something else, as we've discussed in the past, especially in relation to those Fringe reviews, because we have our post-festival coverage where we aren't doing these reviews to generate buzz about the shows while they're still happening. They're very much reflections after the fact. We reach out to all the producers to get their permission. Are you okay with comping us to your show, knowing that this is the format that we're going to do, that it's not going to necessarily help with ticket sales? And we get the overwhelmingly positive, yes, we'd love you to review the show. Here are your tickets. And I think that was a bit of a strategic strategy, not just for the journalistic ethics of, can we accept comps if we're not going to get this out in time, but specifically that we've gotten ourselves on the radars of all of these companies in advance and then immediately after when the episode goes live. So we're really doing a good job of nudging our review in their direction to be like, hey, look at this. And if they enjoy what we said about their show, they share it profusely with their whole network. So yay, those have been the big hits of this year. But because I didn't want to just leave it at that, I wanted to see, okay, when we go past the Fringe, what is the highest viewed individual episode of this year? Because the Fringe episodes feel like cheating when it comes to the numbers. And
slightly cheating.
To my surprise, the most viewed individual episode is a review, and it is Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. Which I guess makes sense. It's a Mervish production, also a Neptune Theater production, so we're getting some
also features 2 very big names.
2 very small big names, because they're hobbits, you see. But yes, Billy Boyd and Dominic Monaghan, and I guess add Tom Stoppard to the list of big names that are attached to it. So yes. I shouldn't have been as surprised as I was that was such a popular episode. And I was very happy with that episode. It was one that I did as a duet review with our good friend, Andrew Poiru. And Mac, originally you and I, we saw that show together.
We saw that show together.
Thinking it would be a duet review between the two of us, but then you recused yourself from
I recused myself before I think I even saw it fully, because as Ryan knows, I'm not a fan of absurdist theater.
As you say in your on-screen note in that episode, which you have your on-screen editor's note, but yes.
That's right. That's right. But I was like, it's Dominic Monaghan and Billy Boyd. I gotta at least go see my hobbits.
Yeah, they're your hobbits. So yes,
They're
and it
my
was,
hobbits. They are worth the ticket price to go in and see them and sit through it. It's some absurdist theater that I probably would not have paid to see otherwise.
And it was just kind of so serendipitous that Andrew, who had already been on multiple of our episodes, we found out that he saw that show not once but twice.
Yes.
So like, wow, okay, if we're gonna have anybody come on to do a duet review of this one, it should be him. And
Absolutely.
it turned out to be our most popular individual show review of the year. So thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Hobbits. Thank you, Mervish and Neptune Theater for that. So that was, I guess, the year's output, the results of all that number crunching. Now let's talk a bit more about us and our favorites in the same spirit of the best of the year. So this next question that I would like to ask both of you, my dear friends, is what were your favorite episodes that we released in 2024? Now, I want to be clear about this. This isn't necessarily like the shows that you like the most that we reviewed, but what do you think of the actual episodes we created? What were your favorites of that? Who wants to go first? Do you want
Joe, I'll let you go first on this one.
I am going to shed some light on the Cup interviews vein of the Cup. I had the great honor of interviewing some esteemed, beautiful guests this year. I'm just on our page right now, scrolling through to name a handful. I had My World Rocked by interviewing Scott Allen, American theater composer. Literally, his songs are in my musical theater book. Like, that was just an astonishing opportunity there.
He played the piano for you to sing along with him in the episode.
He literally did, yes.
And he name dropped every celebrity he's friends with. It was a great episode.
Yes. Alicia Richardson, bringing stuff a little bit more central to home to Toronto. Alicia's been doing phenomenal work as playwright and performer. Also, Alicia was my vocal coach when I did Hamlet back in third year, which we didn't even know each other very well then, but it's just been someone that's been in my vicinity throughout my own professional career. So that was really lovely. As I always say in those episodes, it gives me the opportunity to get to know some of these artists on kind of like a coffee chat basis that we wouldn't have time to do other than doing it in this interview form now. Also, my dear friend and person that I will always perform for and with, Mateo Chavez Lewis. That was to spotlight Tommy Rhodes, the show that him and we did in the spring, but also just to kind of expand there. I just feel like our interviews also, if we were to kind of map throughout the years, they just keep getting deeper and more layered. And like, even like Alicia mapped out like sort of a way of accessing your emotions as like did like a little mini lesson plan in our interview. I just feel we've expanded, again, speaking of expanding, Chloe Rose Flowers, an up and coming emerging artist who is starting a fresh company. There's so much room for the interviews to not only just be like, tell me about yourself, but to really like offer this one-on-one conversation about something in the industry, not only just about themselves too. And I feel like it's just great. I always feel so personally empowered as a member of the Cup after doing those, but also as a performer and an actor. And I just feel inspired to sort of take on whatever the next step is with everything when I do those interviews. So thank you to our interview guests. And I know I only mentioned a couple, but every one of them is very valuable. And I love that the interviews, Cup interviews, is a vein of our show. Yeah. Anyways, that's my answer.
That's a great answer. Mac, how about you?
Well, I mean, two of my favorite episodes that I really enjoyed doing this year. One was our 200th episode on Hamilton. Yes. That was a fun, solid one, because Ryan knows I am not the biggest Hamilton fan in the world. It was not you. I know. It was not one that took my world by storm, and we had a
turn your world upside down.
No.
Hey.
No. That's a Hamilton reference.
I know. but it was one of those ones where it was nice to go back and revisit the show, watch it in the pro shot, talk about it, kind of air out some of the reasons why maybe it doesn't always rank the highest amongst, my musicals. But at the same time, I assume it was kind of a great, kind of fun way to ring in episode 200, where like the first time around for our 100th episode, we did kind of a nice reflective experience, and
Kind of
then
like the one we're doing right now,
kind
but for
of,
an occasion, a different
yeah,
occasion.
exactly. But then for 200, we were like, well, you know what? Let's do kind of a fun kind of discussion all about a pro shot, something we started off doing, 200 episodes ago. So it was a nice kind of back to the root, as it were. But my other one was our National Theater discussion all about the Crucible that we did with Sarah, just because some of the back and forth we had in that one was spicy and fun. Ryan and I arguing about Judge Danforth in that
So great.
one.
Wait, was that in the National Theater one, or was that in the?
We brought up that fight.
Okay, because I remember that was specifically
Just like-
Paul Schofield, who was in the movie.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay,
But
I need
we-
to rewatch the National Theater
But then
one,
we revived that one,
Yeah.
just like our
Okay.
ongoing Amadeus Salieri battle that you and I
which
have.
came up again in the Hamilton episode.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, those
we
were both
have
really
themes.
We do. Those were both really fun, solid episodes that were fun to record. One that I was not in that I feel deserves a shout out, and Ryan, this may bleed over into you, but your Playing Shylock editorial or review that you did with Max was just terrific. Once again, it's a solid conversation. It's one of those kind of juicy cup runneth over dialogues that kind of the cup makes its bones on. So I think it's a solid representation of kind of what the cup has to offer. And I think you and Max did a solid job in that discussion. And so that was a great one that I got to kind of do some light editing on, because Ryan kind of took the majority of the edit responsibilities on that one. And then it was fun kind of going through and watching it and enjoying it. So yeah, those are kind of my top 3 that I would say were really solid pieces that were fun to kind of either do or watch. So,
Yeah. Well, you took 2 of mine because yes, Hamilton 200 I think was a very special episode. It was just, it's a show that does, for better for worse, hold a special place in my heart. I got to talk about all of the footnotes in that big chunky tome. Yeah, I think that was just a very great episode. And yes, we all had such fun. It's nice when we get the whole trio together like we're doing right now for a special occasion. Playing Shylock.
I also just want to shout out my ensemble. I looked great in that episode.
Yeah,
if you take
like,
nothing away from it, the people who just listen to it as a podcast have no idea.
There's some, again, just like the cup running freely over, like there's some days that the ensemble is featured. There's some days it's not. There's some days we're rolling in post spin class. Yeah. That episode, A+ on the ensemble.
Yeah.
Anyways, back to you, Ryan.
So back to the other one that you brought up. Yes, Playing Shylock I think was an excellent episode. I know that I can always just, anytime I want to have a very Jewish conversation, I could just call up Max, and we don't even need an excuse to do it. The first time we did our very Jewish editorial, the Must Shylock Be a Jew, there was no prompt for that. It was just, hey, I know you have thoughts on this. Can we do an episode on it? This felt like a spiritual sequel that had to happen. Can Stage was doing a play featuring a pretty big name actor that is essentially about all of the things we talked about in that previous editorial. And yeah, it was a delightful episode. I've had multiple people, like just from the theater world, come up to me, or if I'm like texting with them, they'll just tell me like, hey, I listened to that Playing Shylock episode. It was like riveting or electric. People use some crazy adjectives to describe that. And like, that just really filled my heart. Like, I think it was a very strong episode, and I'm glad that it has been received as such. Other episodes that I want to highlight this year. It's unfortunate the sound quality wasn't great on this one, but I absolutely loved the interview that I did with His Royal Highness Anand Rajaram in the aftermath of his fringe play Crosstown. Yeah, the sound levels weren't great on that one, and I think that unfortunately, is a bit of a stain on that episode that was unable to be rectified in post-production. But that was just a completely mesmerizing discussion. He is just a fascinating person, someone whose work I was very familiar with, but I didn't know him well personally prior to this, and just having that amazing conversation with him was, it was life-changing, for lack of a better word. Like he's just so generous as a conversationalist, so open to having his ideas challenged. He stood firm about a lot of things, but he was very happy when I was going to push against ideas of his. And I think people should check out that episode as a testament to the power of challenging art, both art that challenges us and the virtues of challenging works of art. That I think is just it made me very happy to be somebody who interviews artists. And I don't always love the way I feel about how interviews turn out. And that was one that I just felt great for days after doing that. And if you're watching, that's the effect you have on people with the work you produce and the generous conversations you have.
Loved him in that Disney play.
So did I. We talked about that in the interview. Briefly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. 3 just other quick ones that I want to mention here. Just quick reviews. I don't even have to say much about them. They're just ones that I think we did a solid job on them. They hold a special place in my heart. Rear Window, Dead Elephants, and The Fixing Girl.
The Fixing Girl.
Yeah.
Which The Fixing Girl might come up again in this conversation, but those
Yep, it will.
But those are 3 reviews that I think we just knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
So yes. Speaking of The Fixing Girl, let's get to this next topic of conversation. So those are the episodes that we were very proud of this year. But we are all people who consume a lot of theater, and not all of them even make it into episodes of this show.
Yes.
So in general, not about the episodes, but just about the productions themselves, what are a few of your favorite plays that you saw in 2024 that are still sticking with you? And they don't necessarily have to be ones that we reviewed, but they certainly can be. Mac, go for it.
All right. Number 1 is one that we did not cover because we did not do a Stratford roundup this year just because of timing in our schedules. But one that I got to give a shout out to is A Salesman in China.
Hell yeah, it is. That's on mine too.
That
was so good.
It was so good. Jill, I wish you had seen it. Because it was just
if you want to go to Ottawa, it's going to be at the NAC.
There you go, Jill. You got a car, you can drive 5 hours.
Yeah, okay.
Hop in your car, let's go. But no, oh my god, that production, like, I was interested in seeing it when it was announced for the season, and it was on that list of yes, I got to see it, and because I had missed seeing Casey and Diana the year before at Stratford, I got to pick it up. When it came to Soul Pepper, thank goodness. But that was one of those ones where I was like, this feels like a really special show just from the description. And so I went by myself, which I do a lot at Stratford. I just hop on the coach and go by myself. I'm a very self-sufficient person. But I mean, I am looking for plus ones if people do want to join, putting that out there to the world. 2025 goal.
Let's get Max some more theater buddies.
Drop in the chat. Either way, point being, that production was outstanding. Like Ryan Borochovitz said, like almost 2/3 of that show was done in Mandarin.
Yeah, so it was like completely bilingual, back and forth. Whenever characters are talking English, we had Mandarin surtitles, and anytime they were talking in Mandarin, we had English surtitles. No language was put on a more superior footing than the other. It was incredible.
Correct. And just the fact that Stratford's known for having a very white audience, like that is kind of their base audience. I mean, they are diversifying, which is great to see. I can attest to that being on the coach bus. It's a very diverse group that usually takes the coach bus of not just of race, but gender and age range. It's the coach bus. Stratford, one of your best decisions you ever made was that decision with the coach bus. I would encourage you to go further with the coach bus. Point being, Salesman in China, that story about reconceptualizing the whole concept of death of a salesman, brilliant. And adding in that historical element to it, just, oh my god, I wish it ran longer, because that was just chef's kiss, the type of theater that needs to be made. And I was saying to Aaron Jin, because I had met him at the coach bus as we were both leaving that night, because he was in the middle of casting Annie at the festival, and he and I were both talking just about how, unfortunately, in Canadian theater, so few shows make it outside Canada and make it to Broadway. But he and I were both saying, you could package this show and this cast up and ship it straight to New York, open it in one of those theaters, and it would be like that. It could easily go where it is, no problem.
Did either of you point out the reason why they're not going to do that? The kind of glaring reason why?
No.
Because there was a play with an identical premise that played in New York at basically the exact same time, called Salesman. That is the exact same premise adapted from Arthur Miller's diary of that production.
So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, which it was a bit of a, hey, isn't this neat that these two plays completely independent of each other adapted the same historical episode?
There's a lot of movies that do that. I mean, what was that? Ashton Kutcher versus Justin Timberlake.
Yeah, no strings attached for Friends with Benefits.
Yeah, it's kind of the whole.
Yeah, there's
all
a lot
of those movies.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like,
So I mean,
because
like, so like the theater world is not immune to that. So I don't think that should ever be an excuse not to bring a good production to another
Yes.
audience. Frig, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a rare piece of Canadian theater that I can full on say, like Casey and Diana, take it to New York and put it up. Let's go. Another piece that I was is a solid piece from 2024 is The Goat, starring Lucy Peacock and Rick Roberts, and this was an intense play. If you don't know the premise of it, I will not spoil it for you because it is a very wild premise of a piece.
the production's over. You could spoil it if you wanted
Well,
to.
no.
It's funny because Max, someone who like doesn't really like absurdist theater, like you're obsessed with an Albie play. I love this.
But Albie, this is an absurdist in the way that Brecht
Not if you
and
ask
Stoppard
Martin
is.
Eslin. Brecht
Yeah.
isn't an absurdist
right.
either, but
Yeah,
well,
but Stoppard, where you're repeating phrases and you can't really follow the plot. Is,
yeah, Albie's contribution to the American theater was marrying the realist popular aesthetic with some of the more European absurdist innovations.
like, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, but like
whole
he is
concept
under the umbrella of absurdism when you study it in theater school. So that's
Yeah,
why
because
I'm
he's
just
in the
like-
book.
Yeah, but
he's in the book, but I
anyways.
mean, like, yes, is it absurd that the whole premise of spoiler alert for a play, but the whole premise of the show is that a married man fucks a goat. There's my
your one
F-bomb of
swear
the
word.
day. But like, yes, is that absurd? Absolutely, because does that happen every day? Hell no.
I'm sure in some parts of the world it happens every day.
I highly doubt it, Ryan. Bestiality is not something that I see looked at very often. But it's the whole, but basically he phrases this whole absurdist premise of a relationship falls because a man fucks a goat.
It's a tragedy.
But it basically it's centered around a relationship falling apart. And the relationship falling apart, like the conversation is still like a classic play. It feels like a 12 angry men locked in a room. Two people are really gonna or Sister Aloysius and Father What's His Face battling it out in doubt. Like it's one of those things where it's gonna be two people battling, and Lucy Peacock and Rick Roberts killed it. Like there was a moment where Lucy Peacock literally smashed this gorgeous diorama because Rick Roberts' character is an architect, and she just smashes this piece, and literally the entire audience of the studio theater almost gave her a standing ovation. It was that raucous of a cheer because everybody was like, "Hell yes, Lucy! Put this man in his place for doing this horrible, godforsaken act of assaulting this goat." Like bring it on. Like it was just such a cathartic, like everybody was just so into it. It was one of those great theatrical moments where everybody was just in the moment. And that's why that piece is so special this past year. It was one of those pieces where you were in it, it was grimy, it was dirty. And that ties into another piece that I will give a shout out to, which is Cock, that Talkish Free Theater did.
Which is coming back.
It's coming back, and I would recommend people go see it if you can. I know the run's almost sold out, but that play, once again, it's a bit absurdist, but still in that Albie area of they take an absurdisty kind of concept, but they distill it down into a very manageable, still through line piece that you can follow. I mean, once again, I hate the one character entirely because he's an asshole, but it's one of those great pieces where I just watched that piece. It was like done in Barrie in this underground storage unit, like grungy, gross. It was this all-out dirty fight that this couple's gonna have, and it's great. I loved it. It was solid. Go see it if you can.
Yeah, in
Well
Toronto,
done.
you don't even have
Coming
to go
to
to Barrie
Toronto.
anymore.
Yeah, coming to Toronto.
Yes.
Highly recommend it. And those are the three. Oh, sorry, one more, which is
It was a good year for theater, everyone.
It was a very good year, and this is one that Ryan and I did get a chance to review, and it stars Canadian icon Megan Follows, and that was 4 minutes 12 seconds.
Yeah,
which was once again, it's another messy, dirty play where characters are in the gray. Like it is just like you are just getting into the grime of humanity and excising it and bringing it out. I think that was the most resonating thing, is that humanity is gray. It is not perfect. We are imperfect vessels, and these plays.
It looks like Jill really wants to say.
And Jill wants to jump in, so I'm going to throw it to Jill.
Next, because I have the best transition
Transition
ever. speaking of gray,
Mhm.
speaking of, you know, calling humanity out on its
Mhm.
imperfections
Mhm.
and potentially looking me deadly in the face saying, "Are
Mhm.
you ovulating?" at a time when I
Mhm.
was ovulating. I'm speaking
Mhm.
about the pigeon in Dead Elephants,
Mhm.
which gets one of my shout outs. Mac, you were
Nice.
done, right?
Yes. Oh yeah. Trust me, I was done.
Great.
I could. There's many more I could shout out, but I'm like, I gave
You-
4. I think that's enough.
Okay, so I took that and I'm rolling with it because I was
Roll.
like, what a transition. So, Dead Elephants gets a shout out.
Mhm.
I have oh, I'm going to make another fun thing. I
Mm.
don't have 6 plays, but I do want to shout out 6.
Yeah, you do.
I saw
Mhm.
6 3 times, only half the amount. I wanted to see it 6, but budget-wise, I could
Mhm.
only see it 3 times.
That's still quite
Um,
a bit.
That's 2 more
I
times than I saw it.
saw a different cast every time. So I shed some love to the standbys. It was such a fun time. It is on my list to learn all of the songs and post them all on my Instagram for 2025. So stand by on that mission to be accomplished. But sorry, going back to Dead Elephants. Dead Elephants gets a huge shout out. I feel like the 4 shows I'm going to mention are all very different, but all pressed upon a jugular of Jill's that needed to be pressed upon, if that makes sense. So 6 was like the energy, the entertainment quality, the powerhouse vocals, again, inspiring across so many domains there. Dead Elephants, that is my type of theater, like to perform in, to bear witness to. I just like honestly, I'm speechless. I saw it at a time in my life that I needed to see that piece of art. Personally, it just was one of those aha universe moments, which personally, Jill, going throughout this year, I've had a lot of those moments graciously. And that I think was one of the first ones for me. I guess that's just where I'll leave that. 2 other ones I want to mention to kind of, again, pushing on a jugular and going down memory lane and reminding Jill of her nostalgic little baby self is the Fixing Girl that we saw at
Mm.
YPT. It's such a lovely sort of honor piece that honors the relationship between grandchild and grandparent. And I know, yeah, in that episode, Ryan and I get very sentimental and very nostalgic with our own relationships with our grandparents. And I even like drank out of my grandpa's teapot. I wore my grandma's Mickey Mouse sweater. And again, it was kind of like an episode and a piece of theater that was like, ooh, I'm getting emotional, but like a warm hug that I needed. And again, YPT, like what a wonderful partner to have on the Cup. Like I feel like YPT has been inviting us to sell most of their pieces now. And it's been so lovely too, myself having a lot of TYA experience. And I always will go back to working with kids and for kids. And especially if I get to do it on in a theater lens, even the better. So just again, a lot of boxes were checked for me, bearing witness to that performance. And I'm very grateful for those memories. And then another one I want to shout out is another company that keeps inviting us back. And I'm so excited for their next titillating project is Transcendence's Eve of St. George. All of the performers that make up the beautiful, intricate dance spectacles that is Transcendence Projects. We've reviewed quite a bit of their stuff now, and Eve of St. George was just lusty and beastly and just, again, my type of performance. Like a visceral response was had being in the audience, and then also just some of the best dancers we have in our city telling a story and doing it above and beyond justice. And so yeah, shout out to Transcendence and Eve of St. George. Yeah, that's kind of where I'll leave my
Nice.
little 4 corners square of theater that
And with the exception of 6, those are all ones that we reviewed. So if people want to hear your thoughts in more
Yes.
detail, they can return to those episodes.
Correct.
Yeah, I have a lot. This was, like I said, a very good year for theater. Salesman in China was on my list, but we already talked about that. Fixing Girl was on my list. Oh my God, so good. You can hear us get misty talking about that in our review. I feel like that's one that everybody loved when it happened, and yet everyone forgot about when like other people, critics and publications were putting out their top 10 of the year. And Justice for Fixing Girl. I thought that was an exceptional show. Other ones I want to highlight. Dana H is a show that, so I've been with that show for a long time. It factors heavily into my research. I had read everything you could possibly read about it, yet I hadn't seen it until the production that Crow's Theatre brought to Toronto that they ultimately had to stage at Factory because Great Comet was getting extended upon extensions. And yeah,
and it's coming back to Mirvish.
Great Comet is, but that didn't make my list. Also, it's from the previous year, even though it extended into this year. But yeah, but Dana H was just an extraordinary piece of theater. It's one that I obviously knew I would have very strong feelings about, and it didn't disappoint when I finally did get to see it. Jordan Baker's performance with the lip syncing is just
so good.
A miracle of theater. I don't know how else to put it. It is extraordinary. The content and subject matter is bone chilling. And yeah, if you want to look at who's making very interesting art right now in the 21st century, look at Lucas Nath. He is, I think, one of our most incredible playwrights. What else do I have here? My top 3 from Fringe that I wanted to shout out. Crime After Crime After Crime by Sex T-Rex. I just thought was some of the most amazing, fun genre mashup, sort of quasi improvised type, a very stylized sketch, but also linear through line narrative across multiple generations and genres. Just so incredible. Monks, of course, is a very special piece that, I still think about all the time. And it is the best kind of chaos and then hits you with that gut punch at the very end. It's so good. Somebody has to bring that back. I know they had their brief stint at the Crow's Cabaret, but that was a brief stint. This needs to have a big sold out run at some point somewhere outside of a Fringe or Cabaret venue. And my number one show that I saw at Fringe was The First Jew in Canada, A Trans Tale by S. Bear Bergman. This is a show I think about maybe every single day since I saw it. Wow. You can hear me getting misty just describing the plot of it, not even analyzing it in our part 1 of our Fringe roundup. I have completely just become a big fan of Bear's work. I've been reading multiple of his published books. He has many. Most of them are books of essays, and he's just such an exquisite storyteller, such a thoughtful person. I found out / was reminded of the fact that he used to write theater reviews for the now defunct Mooney on Theater. So I've gone back and reread all of his old reviews. This is a new favorite author of mine, and also just this amazing performer who just did the most simple, beautiful, elegant solo show I think I've ever seen in my life that just touched every single one of my heartstrings. So yeah, that has to come back at some point and everybody needs to go see it. Last 2 that I want to talk about very briefly. One is a show that made nobody's list for this year, like across publications, mainly because it was a remount of a production that had been in the past. So I guess people wrote it off as a new play for this year. But Bad Hat's Alice in Wonderland was the very first show that I saw in 2024. And I loved it when I saw it. Yeah.
I'm adding that.
You're adding it to your list. I remembered when we were taking the streetcar back home from that show, you said, I don't think anything I see this year is going to top that. And it was quite literally the first thing we saw this year. And yeah, it's so good. And I loved it when I saw it. But then in the summer, they dropped the album. And I have been listening to the album constantly. And specifically the last 2 songs, Growing and Questions, I just listened to those 2 on repeat. And I guess I like
go back to that.
I like theater that makes me cry, I'm realizing as I'm recapping this year. Because
we love that.
Yeah, you are who you are until you're not who you were. Okay. Says the caterpillar as he becomes a butterfly. So yeah, that is incredible. Everybody needs to listen to that album if you haven't already. Last one I want to shout out, and it's not something I saw in Toronto or in Ontario or even in Canada. A couple months ago, I was in Seattle for an academic conference, and I saw a couple shows while I was in town, but I saw the production of Love's Labour's Lost put on by the Seattle Shakespeare Company. And that might just be one of the best Shakespeare productions I think I've ever seen. And it was like a small little production in this like purpose-built theater, but in like a community center space. As I was walking into it, I thought like, oh, this might not be great. This might just be like a, community theater or whatever. Like, whatever, I'm in town. This is what's playing right now. I'm going to see it. I like Shakespeare. I like this play. And I was blown away. It was so incredible. It was like, these aren't like, this isn't a company that's in our neighborhoods. I don't need to belabor it. These aren't actors here, but Seattle Shakespeare does excellent work based on this one encounter I had here. And if anybody's in Seattle, you should see their productions because it's really good. If you're ever in Seattle, hopefully they'll have something playing at the same time. And at the very end, the artistic director like came out, and you'd think he was doing like a spiel for like, if you like what you saw, donate to the company. But he kind of did that, but more so he was like, just tell people about it. Just if you saw art that touched you and resonated you, just tell people about it. And that's kind of like what we do. And walking back to my hotel room that night, I had to just like call you two in the form of an audio message to our group thread. And just, even though I knew you couldn't see it, I just had to tell people about the beautiful art that made me feel things. Yeah, this was a good year for theater. Okay, this brings us to our last question of the night. So we've just reflected on the theater year that's passed. Let's look to the future. It is now 2025. And in the spirit of bringing this to a graceful conclusion, let's each shout out one show, our number one, that we are most looking forward to in what has already been announced of the 2025 theater season in Toronto or elsewhere. Who wants to go first?
Jill.
Okay, I love how I was like, let's only do one. And I feel like I kind of want to say two. Can we do two?
All right, we could do two.
Oh, Jill, you're so nice to allow.
I have like 18 here, but sure.
No, only two. Only two. The stage manager and me is saying we only have enough time for two. Okay. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, a Canadian stage, which I just had the opportunity to sort of work with the Canadian stage for a marketing MC liaison position for the Wizard of Oz Panto. And fun factoid, in case folks didn't know this, but Canadian stage is what they are really drumming home as the sort of how to address their company. So
not Can Stage?
Going away with Can Stage, so Canadian stage going forward. Okay. Yes.
Neat.
So Canadian stages, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? I love this play. I would love to be Martha one day. And I just think the fact that this production, both the couples are played by real life couples, and all four performers are stellar staples in the Canadian theater sphere. I'm really looking forward to seeing the four of them sink their teeth into this production.
That's a dangerous play to do as an actual couple.
I know, right?
It could unearth some things you know you're not going to unearth.
It turns out that Paul Gross and Martha Burns have a child that they made up. What?
And then I also want to shed some love. I have the wonderful opportunity to be a director mentor for Heart House Theater production this winter. And last year it was Legally Blonde. This year I am director mentoring a production of The Shawshank Redemption. So it's a stage adaptation of that. And so far in email communication with the director, Nev, super lovely human being. And I am going to be in the rehearsal rooms upcoming this month. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they all come up with. And it's the first time that this stage adaptation is hitting Toronto. So
nice.
Super cool coming from a band of students.
And it's a great movie.
Get Busy Living, Get Busy Dying. One of my favorite movies of all time.
To go from, Canadian Stage, which is like one of the higher tiered theater companies here, and then also to go to a university production. Like, again, the Cup, our palette is wide, and I'm excited to indulge in both of these performances.
Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah. Mac.
What are your two, Mac?
You get two.
I get two. All right. So two that I'm excited for. One is, I know one that's also on Ryan's list, so sorry, Ryan, I'm stealing it.
But it's okay. I have a list of like 18 that I need to cull down to two, so take anything you want.
That is true. It is none other than Robert Lepage's upcoming production of Mackers, starring Tom McCannis and Lucy Peacock. I know Lucy's done...
Bike Beth.
Yeah, Bike Beth. That's what we'll call it. We'll call it Bike Beth.
Not Mac Bike.
Nah,
no, doesn't ring. Bike Beth is good.
Bike Beth is good. But this is one where, yes, I know Lucy did the Scottish play back in 2004 was a terrific Lady M in that. But I love Lepage's Coriolanus. That was such a stage cinematic blend hybrid production that was just so wild to watch that I am like, if anybody can pull off doing a biker version of Mackers with two more senior company members, because this is obviously not a young Mackers couple. This is one that's more of a mature Mackers couple, and that's rarely done. So I'm excited. I'm excited for that. That is like top of my list of things I got to see this year at the festival. So shout out for that. Another one is going up to Soul Pepper's Kim's Convenience. Since I missed the original run, but I thoroughly enjoyed the TV show adaptation that was done. So I'm excited. For Christmas, I told my mother that her and I are going to come see a show here in Toronto, and that was one of the few I pitched her. So my dad even said he would come and see that one. So very excited to see that piece as well. And then one fun one that I know I probably will not get a chance to see because it's happening in New York, but one that we've talked about since we've done the realm of the Crucible for so long is none other than John Proctor is the villain that's coming to Broadway, starring Stranger Things as Sadie Sink. Where if I can magically get to New York in time to see the show, I will absolutely put it on my list of things I gotta see. Yeah. But that is a play that I wish would come to Toronto or to Stratford.
I'm sure at some point it'll probably be like
I'm sure
Crows of Soul Pepper Canadian stage.
Yes, exactly. But this is that is production. The minute I saw that advertised, I was like, oh, if Matt could get to New York to see it, that would be awesome. But yeah, that is my like one that I probably will not get a chance to see, even though yes, I will definitely be getting a chance to see for sure Bike Beth by Bear Lepage and then Kim's Convenience at Soul Pepper. So those are my like off the cuff 2 shoutouts I can give right away. But there's many more that I want to see. But yeah, those are the 2 that I will see right now. Jill,
can I briefly go back really quickly to a play that literally changed my life? And talking about New York, I got to see The Notebook in September, and it's done now. But I look forward to that show touring and/or getting picked up by a Canadian company. Yeah. Back to you, Ryan.
Ryan.
All right, rounding us out. Okay, 2. There's a lot of theater that I'm excited about coming up on this season, but if I can just pick 2, I'll do ones that haven't been named yet. Canadian Stage is doing the 2-part Mahabharata in association with Why Not Theatre Company. That was a big regret of mine that I missed it during its very brief run at the Shaw Festival. So I was so excited when I saw that it was included in this season. It is, on one hand, a refutation of Peter Brook's Mahabharata, which I think is interesting. It features almost every single South Asian Canadian actor in some capacity involved in this. It's epic in scale. It's 2 parts. Can Stage has proven that they have a very good track record with 2-part epics over the past couple years. I'm very excited to see that. I think it should be incredible. The other one that I will shout out, I'm going to do an unconventional choice because I'm going to pick something that I know very little about, but I got so excited when I saw it was announced that in the Toronto Fringe this coming season, we are going to get another show by Mixtape Projects, who gave us Killing Time the Musical 2 years ago. In this show, Iris Says Goodbye by the same songwriting duo of Margot Grieve and Ben Kopp. Killing Time was my favorite thing I saw 2 years ago in the Fringe. So when I saw that they have another new musical coming up, I was very excited. And
that was the game show one, right?
That was the game show, Killing Time.
Yes, I remember that. That was a solid Fringe show.
So good. So I'm very much looking forward to what these artists have in store for us in 2025.
Thanks. Yes.
And that's just one of the many shows that I'm excited about. Okay, well, that's it. Welcome to the new year, everyone. We have so much on the cup coming your way. Maybe we'll review some of the things we discuss, or maybe we'll see them just for ourselves, and that'll be it. So let's do our usual sign-offs. I'm not usually the one who has to pitch this to people. Jill, where can people find and follow you and listen to your new album?
Yes, so people can find and follow me in my artist Instagram account, Jillian.Robinson96. And yes, I mentioned earlier in this episode, Tommy Rhodes, was a new musical that was written and helmed by Mateo Chavez Lewis. I had the great honor of playing Leslie Rhodes, sort of our protagonist mother character. I don't need to get into the intricacies, but we did a cast recording. That album is now released on Apple Music, Spotify, wherever you get your music. So we will pop details in this episode if you want to check that out. Looking forward to kind of seeing what the next steps could be with Tommy Rhodes. So keep your eyes peeled to my page for that. As per usual, I post covers of songs. I've been posting some modeling photos. I would love to sink my teeth into some burlesque characters I have up my sleeve. There's a lot of personal sort of goals for my own performing self this year. And so keep your eyes peeled to see kind of what my journey is with all of that.
Lovely. Mackenzie Horner, good sir, where can people find and follow you and listen to your musical thoughts?
Yes, follow me at Mackenzie Horner on social media platforms. Follow my musical theater thoughts over on Before the Downbeat Musical podcast. This Friday, when this episode comes out, is also going to be when I release the review I did for Wicked, the part 1.
Nice.
Because yes, that is when I was going to release over the holidays, and I was like, no, Mac needs a holiday break. So this will come out just in time before the Oscar nominations, where I'm sure that Wicked Part 1 will sweep, because I saw that film 4 times in the
That's
movie
why
theaters.
it'll sweep, because you saw it 4 times.
I saw it 4 times, and it is terrific. That
it is.
That is a that is a theatrical item I'm looking forward to. This year is Wicked for Good, coming out in November, because part 1 blew me away. Go shout out to John M. Chu for knocking it out of the park with that movie musical. But yeah, even Ryan's going to show up on Before the Downbeat in the very near future as we head off to the forum. So stay tuned for that, goodie. Ryan, give us your classic Ryan Borochovitz send-off we all know and love.
No need to find and follow me, but if you like me and my theater thoughts, it lives on our mugs. That is the cup. It's at Cup of Hemlock, or at COH Theater on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Cup of Hemlock Theater on YouTube. Cup of Hemlock Theater podcast and all the podcast places where you might be listening to us right now. All right, everyone, that's it for our fun editorial on theater and the cup in 2024. Here's looking ahead to 2025. See you at the theater, folks. Cheers.
Cheers.